Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 20th episode of the Social Good Podcast. Today we have with us Josh Collin. He is the founder of Crescent Health. Nice to have you with us, Josh.
Thanks for having me on the podcast. Really excited to just chat, jam, all the good stuff.
Yeah. So you're currently over in Mexico City, is that right?
Yes, and it is amazingly amazing.
Wow. How long have you been over there?
So I've been in Mexico City now for about 3 months.
Okay. And yeah, so what are you up to?
Yeah. So last September, so September 2024, I left my job at BetterUp, and BetterUp's the company that bought Crescent. And basically, I call this phase or went into a phase of learning, building, and traveling. So learning new skills that maybe I wasn't as strong as before, and then using those skills to build different maybe projects, different things, and then taking some time to travel because I kind of find myself over the last I don't know, let's call it like 6 to 9 years, just like going in between like tech hubs to tech hubs, so New York, San Francisco, Texas, and started to realize I was getting into like this bubble of hearing the same thing, seeing the same people, which, I like friendly and familiar faces, but I also want to make sure that for me, I'm not kind of getting trapped in the same ways of thinking, the same ways of like being. And so I started to ask some like friends and people I knew, like, hey, I want to travel, go somewhere. Where do you think is a good place to start? And the overwhelming recommendation was to go to Mexico City, and it definitely has been a pretty awesome choice.
Nice. So just going back a little bit to, like going from tech hub to tech hub, were you doing that while you were building I'm sorry, Crescent Health?
Yeah, so we actually started building Crescent in my college dorm room. So this was, let's say, like 2020. Me and my co-founder Jason, we were college roommates, and basically, now we went to college in Philadelphia, and or Swarthmore College, and yeah, we were building it, and then basically, as we were building it, starting to see a little bit of traction, COVID hit, and basically, for people who don't know, Crescent was a basically an app that gave you access to a sleep coach that you could text about your sleep challenges, and coaches had access to your wearable data. So they had your Aura data, your Whoop data, your Fitbit, Apple Watch, whatever it was, and basically they use that data to give more personalized guidance and plans to help you improve your sleep. And with our coaches, we had a team of very awesome clinicians and experts who helped them refine the plans and stuff like that. And so basically that 2020 stage was like very early on. We had like
Mm.
an app. Well, we just made an app before. We were just texting people via iMessage, helping them with their sleep. And it was me and Jason. We didn't have any coaches or funding or anything. And then as we were building it, and obviously COVID hit in March of 2020, it became this like cool thing we were working on to something we felt was very much so needed in the world and for a lot of people, because now it was like, oh my gosh, am I sick? I'm focusing more on my health. More people were buying all these devices. So basically, at that time, I had a job at Goldman. I just actually was a new job, and I quit the job in roughly 2 to 3 weeks to work on it on Crescent full time with Jason. And so we started, in college, and then obviously, like most people, I was just working from my mom's home, and so was Jason. And then as some months went by, we kind of, well, not we, obviously Jason realized we kind of needed a different place to kind of focus and build the
Mhm.
company. And it was this whole funny interaction of, well, I was like, well, I don't want to pay any rent anywhere. I like living for free
Mm.
with my mom. And then Jason
Where
was
is your
pretty much
mom
like,
located?
she lives in New Jersey.
Okay.
So this is in New Jersey. And Jason is like from the Bay Area. And so he was like, yeah, man, we should like figure out a place. We whittled it down to living in San Francisco. And so basically that was 2021. And so in 2021, we, yeah, moved to San Francisco in a founder house, which was pretty awesome. And yeah,
What's that?
the house was called the Atmosphere or Atmos House. And it was basically
Okay.
this, yeah, it's a great house. It was, I think at the time, like 13, 14, like startup founders together, just like building. It was super fun. yeah, it was an amazing time. Everyone in that house is doing super well now, going from like pre-seed startups to now many of the companies have raised Series A's and Series B. So it's pretty cool to see how everyone's doing right now, and yeah.
Yeah, would you recommend like a founder house? Because I've definitely like seen them, and I've always wondered like kind of how they work.
Yeah, I mean, I think like I guess maybe taking a step back from the house itself, at least for me, it was more along the lines of just having a community of people who cared about me, my success, my progress, and vice versa. I think anyone who's doing something as hard as building a company, I think it's really helpful to have a community that can really support you. I think even better if it's like in person because it just, at least I found just being able to like just talk and sit with somebody, give somebody a hug, really like just whiteboard out something is really powerful more than kind of remote doing something remote. And so I think for anyone that's in the game, um, yeah, find a community of people that really support you and care about you. And one of the special things about our house was that as much as people were driven to build big companies and still are, and more importantly, impact the world in a meaningful way, we were all very bought into each other's personal growth and success. And I think a lot of places I see or have heard about, never really the personal growth side and investing in you personally. It's usually build a big company, money for investors, stuff like that. And that's obviously if you're raising money, you want to be mindful of that. But I think having both is really important. And I think our
Mm,
house struck the right balance of having both, or maybe counterbalance, where sometimes it was like we need more caring about each other than we do like caring about your company, and vice versa. And I think we struck the right counterbalance over time. And I think that's why so many companies are doing well, and so many people in the house are doing
yeah,
very well too.
right. You said there were 13 people.
It was a lot of people who came in and out the house. I think
Okay.
there were like 13, 14 rooms. Sometimes at one point there was like 21. But we probably had like, gosh, probably at least like 100 or more different faces like come in the house who live there, who are guests, and these are people who are like some are extremely well known, to some like were are not that well known, to some that are now like on the rise, and so it's pretty cool to see like all the different people that came in and where they are now.
Who would be like the most well-known person that was there?
That live there or visited the house or any either
Yeah.
one.
Yeah, yeah.
And then we have like folks like Bland AI and Isaiah and Soban who lived in the house. They're awesome. And Bland just raised a Series B 10 months after launching the Bland
Oh wow.
company. So yeah, there's just a lot of different people. And I could go on about everyone else, but yeah, I think there's a lot of cool folks who've been there.
Blend was a little bit of an this was some time ago. But
Bland's
it's an
Series
older
B.
company.
No, Bland is new. Bland has been around for 10 months.
Oh really? Okay, okay.
Yeah. I mean, they had like a rebrand and of something previously, but Blend, the company itself, has been around for 10 months. And yeah, so they've been like doing pretty well.
Blend, Blend.
Yeah, Bland, Bland, Bland AI. Yeah,
Oh, Bland. Okay,
Bland.
gotcha.
Yes.
And okay, okay. So, yeah, like what were you working on while you were at the house? Like, tell us a little bit about, yeah, tell us just a little bit about your experience building Crescent Health.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Crescent was such a interesting and weird company, weird thing. Because at the time, again, it was I had just graduated from college. I just quit a full time job at Goldman Sachs, which for everyone is like the best
Right.
company ever for most people. Which I think it's a cool place and for sure. Um,
Mm,
and so yeah, it was just such a weird moment to be like now like moved across the country to a place I'd never been before. I'd never, I think, flown past Tennessee um, at that point in my life, and I had, I want to say, $6,000 or $7,000 in my savings account, and so it was such a, it felt like a dream almost of like, is this really happening? And because we were building so fast and doing a lot of things, never had time to sit down and be like, huh. I did move across the country and quit a job and have 6K in my bank account, and this all happened in the span of less than a year. Uh,
did you
so
have
yeah,
like funding before you quit your job?
no, I mean our college gave us like a very like and very grateful for what they gave us. It was a very nominal amount. It wasn't, at least like, it was awesome in terms of like the confidence in us building like the projects we were doing, but it wasn't like anything like, oh, this funding is going to last us a year. It's like, no, this funding is definitely not going to last us that long, if anything. So I would say from like a investor VC perspective, no, we were self funded for
Mm.
for much of it, and we did pick up some like angel investors. I think right as we got to San Francisco, or a little bit after, before we did like
Mm.
another fundraise, so that helped. But I would say like yeah, definitely for the first like 7 months of doing it full time ourselves, or 6 months, it was just like us using our savings or any discounts we found online, and being like very scrappy in how we were doing things because we just didn't have money to blow.
Right. So you were the like which co-founder were you and which co-founder was your?
Yeah, so we say co-founders, but my primary responsibilities were fundraising, hiring, managing, and working with our coaches,
Mhm.
operations. We're sort of I would say like to say my wheelhouse, low code, no code tools or building, and then Jason primarily focused on engineering and product and design. So I would say those are our main wheelhouses. But yeah, those were the things
Okay.
I primarily like.
Okay. So what was like the product iteration process like? Did you guys have a product in the beginning
Yeah,
before you guys raised money and stuff?
yeah. Yeah, I mean, when we started, again, it was in college, and so we didn't really have an app. We just had iMessage, and so basically, Jason like made this post in a Facebook group, and that post drew in some people, and then I believe our first customer ever, her name was Denise, and she was this like 60-year-old woman from like Iowa, and she was like, "Oh, this," because basically, we had basically built this app or experience that we wanted for ourselves because we were going through issues as it's like sleep issues while rooming together. Because basically my like morning routine at the time started at 5 or 6 a.m. In the morning, and Jason is a software engineer, so he's up until like 3, 4, 5 a.m. And so it was very like not conducive to getting good sleep. And so we were basically building something we wanted for ourselves. And as we were building it, and building by that, I mean, we started getting like these different devices to track our sleep, like the Aura Ring. We started like coaching and holding ourselves accountable. And we were like, oh, this seems to be like pretty simple and works. And then Jason built this like little platform to start measuring how different habits were affecting your sleep because we want to get more granular. Some people found that interesting. This woman found it very interesting, so much so she paid us to help her take care of her sleep. And it was funny. It was just like in between classes, we were just texting this woman, like, "Hey, how you doing? How's your sleep? Send us screenshots of your Aura data so we can analyze it." So yeah, started off pretty. That was pretty much it. Um, and then over time, we started building the app and building more functionality to like pull in the data through different APIs, the ability to have like a messaging function to chat with your coach, um,
Mm.
who at the time was me and Jason. Then just became me. I was like the coach that talked to people Sunday to Sunday, which was very taught me a lot. Was also very painful, but some you have to. I think for like the first phrase is like do things that don't scale, and I think part of that saying is to like when you do that, you can learn much more hands on
Yeah.
um, with what's going on, and that's invaluable, and it definitely was for us. And then after we kind of got to San Francisco, we basically graduated from like Josh as primary coach to bringing on some more coaches to help work with people, and these coaches had worked with NBA players, famous people,
Oh wow.
help people with like other sleep issues, and so
How
yeah, we
did you
definitely
guys did you guys bring in those like big name coaches?
it was actually, let's see, it was honestly just through like hustle. I would say like we knew we needed to find some people, so basically I started reaching out to some folks in like startup land slash coaching land, and one person was like very very helpful, and he introduced me to like some coaches, and then we basically just went through a process, and it was so funny because at the time I was like, again, things were just happening so fast again. Because mind you, this is like February of 21, maybe end of January. Like 6 months ago, I quit my job during a world crisis, pandemic, with no money in my bank account. And so I'm just like, well, we're actually hiring people for this thing that we just was like texting someone in between class for. And so things started to happen like really fast, which was interesting. And it was also funny because there was a point um, that same year, like 2020, where we were like, do we even want to keep building this thing? Because it was like hard. Like, we didn't have any like really any revenue coming in. It was like just a tough experience. And I think, the fact that we believed that this could be a thing. We saw like there was still demand, and we just had to like persevere and like double down on what we knew what was working. Actually led to more success happening. So I think there's just like also a lesson there of like things are shitty sometimes, they really are, and sometimes the shittiness is actually good. It's like tries to weed you out or tries to stop you from doing something. I think actually Seth Godin talks about this in one of his books called The Dip, where it's like when you're on the path of doing something really cool and meaningful, everyone always experiences this thing called the dip. And the dip is usually like, this like moment in time where you're like, am I going to get through this? Is this going to actually work? Like, you're crying. Like, I mean, we were crying. I was crying at least. I was like, fuck, like I just quit my job. I don't know like what's going on. This is terrible. And when at least for me, like getting through that dip, and obviously I think for Jason too, was definitely tough. But when we did, things started to work. The dip can be a good thing if you work through it. It might be something on the other side.
How do you have money to hire the coaches?
Yeah, so this was like I mentioned that at that point when we landed to San Francisco, we got some angel checks that were coming in,
Oh, okay.
but also we were making enough money too, because basically like although we weren't like really making anything end of 2020, because we had like said, hey, we're gonna double down on focusing on stuff, whatever. We actually started to make a lot more revenue comparatively, and so we actually had money to be like, oh wow, we're making this much money, and we can like invest it in doing some stuff, which was pretty awesome. And then after we started seeing some more growth and some numbers, and we raised like an angel round of funding, which was also very helpful to keep bringing on more people.
What did you guys have the product by the time you raised, your angel checks?
The first ones were like the angel round.
Mm.
We had yeah, I mean we had the app working. I mean, yeah, the app was fully functional, and we had people on it by the time we got to San Francisco. So yeah, we had a product and everything, but I think more importantly, we had just like growth and like revenue.
I see. Like, what was
And
your MLR at that point?
yeah, we were probably making like, yeah, I think early on we were probably making like 3 4K a month
I see.
of revenue, um, which is like funny because a couple months ago it probably was barely like $100 or something.
Right. What was that? Well, what was that product? What was that path to like product market fit like? Because that was probably your earliest sign of product market fit.
Yeah, I don't know if we really ever got PMF, to be honest. I think of PMF of like as like when you have it, and like I just never knew if we had it, so I was pretty sure we didn't have it. But we did like figure out some stuff that helped us grow. And I think part of it was like we just brought on like more coaches, so we had more capacity to like handle people. Jason did an awesome job of building the software, so the software could like provide more insights, do more interesting things for people, which were really awesome. And so I think we just figured out things over time that worked really well. But I'd say like it was definitely, I mean, there were definitely a lot of challenges for sure as well. I mean,
Mm,
I think doing any tech enabled service business is just very challenging.
mm.
It's like it's hard enough to build a like startup, but like to
Yeah.
build a startup where you have to like work with like coaches or doctors or people, because now you have to have a lot of operations. You have to have a lot of someone managing like the network of people you've like made, and that's like not software. It's all
Mm,
peopling, so to speak. And so that made it like significantly more challenging, and I think also fun in a lot of ways. I learned a lot for sure, but it's one of those things at the moment in time. It was like, oh, this like we're working through it. It makes sense and stuff. Like being out of it, it's always it's funny for me to be like, oh yeah, that's one of the reasons why it was so dang hard is because at one point I think we had like 10 or 12 coaches we were working with, and it's like yeah, like it takes a lot of effort and time to like
mm.
even though it's like a small number, you have to like work with. Well, I had to like work with people one on one. Obviously they were a lot of them were great, things like were working, not working, and that took away focus from different things because now you almost have this other, and that now also like made the product more complicated because it's like you have the app that the customers see per se, and then you have like the app that the coaches need to use to actually do their job. And so you're basically building for like two different people. It's like a marketplace. It's a managed marketplace, right? We have to build for like two different sides of the marketplace, knowing that the coaches have to deliver the experience to the member, but the member might have wanted something that the coaches didn't want to give or didn't know how to. And so it was like a very like complex web of things that honestly maybe it would have been simpler to just do a B2B SaaS tool to be honest. But hey, we learned a lot.
Yeah.
Not to say
Yeah.
B2B SaaS
So,
is always simple, but this one
yeah.
was uniquely kind of challenging.
Right. So you guys are like a B2C product.
Yeah, we were a B2C product. We were basically a managed marketplace. Um, yeah, we were definitely. I think someone told us like I forget who said this, but it was like told us it was like, oh, you guys are playing on extra hard mode as like 22-year-olds, 23-year-olds trying to do a business like this, and I was like, well, we just got to make it work. So we are where we are. We got
Yeah.
to figure things out.
What are like, yeah, like did you guys have to build an app for the coaches and an app for the consumer?
Yeah, so the coaches had like a web portal, like they had a web app that they used to work with members, see the data, stuff like that. I think at one point we did have like some like makeshift mobile app for them. But yeah, so I mean, it was definitely an interesting lesson of like, you know,
Mm.
on like marketplaces and how to like build them and how to like work with them and how to build products for like multiple, I guess, stakeholders or people at the same time. And obviously did a lot of that when I got to BetterUp too. At BetterUp, I worked a lot with our coaches as well and worked on a lot of new product launches we had too. And so the learnings I had definitely helped quite a bit when I got to those points in times. But it's definitely very interesting. Yeah, interesting experience all around.
What was like that, do you have any like one or two defining moments that gave you guys the push to, um yeah, that kind of gave you guys the push or validation?
Oh, to push like to push
Like it
us
was
like keep working on it or
yeah, that 0 to 1 moment.
yeah, honestly, like definitely in the beginning where it was like when we had like that first person pay for like an iMessage app and nothing we had was like obviously confidence to be like, wow, someone's going to pay us like 30, $40 a month for something like this and maybe we have something.
What
And
was that
then
like?
what was,
What was like that? They were just messaging you and your co-founder?
yeah, it was the iMessaging I messaged before, just iMessaging in between classes and stuff. And then, yeah, I would say like, it was always like, I think there are like many like small moments of like, they keep going through it like when people are paying or like we got like new teammates on or like customers are happy about things. So I think there was a lot of little moments over time that really like helped, but and I think that's like a big part of it too. It's like I think with startups, anything that um, someone believes will be a large task or a big endeavor, it's those little moments throughout the day or throughout the week or whatever it is along the journey that really can keep the fire going. You know, I think like outside of like the obviously company stuff, Jason and I were pretty on top of our health, I would say. Was working out like quite a bit. Jason was always in the gym. And I think this is life, company stuff is a marathon. And I think we were both pretty bought into like obviously we were running a health company, so it was kind of a byproduct
Yeah,
of it. But even
yeah.
before that, I was a college athlete. My mom is a nurse practitioner. My sister is a doctor. My uncle's a doctor. Jason had always been sort of into like the fitness life too, and so we took it pretty seriously to be like, if we're gonna last on this journey in this marathon, we have to take care of ourselves. And obviously, like, yes, there are going to be days where like we might have to work 10, 12, whatever hours as we did. But at the same time, like we have to still prioritize and find time for making sure our health is in a good place.
Yeah, so yeah, that's a great point. I also take health very seriously, as well. Maybe I'm not, in the gym every single day, but I do try and go every like, 2, 3 times a week or something like that. So I do definitely like understand the impact of keeping fitness a priority. But yeah, the one point that I wanted to go back to that I was curious about was like, you know, how did you acquire your first customers actually?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
Mm.
the first people, like I mentioned, Denise came from like a Facebook post Jason made. And so I guess basically like what we basically did was just go where our customers were online, and that was like the Aura Ring Facebook group. These were the subreddits, like the Aura subreddit or the Biohacker subreddit. Basically, where were all these people, and just give them stuff that's of value. And so yeah, Reddit, Facebook. It's actually very funny. There was a moment when we were building when we got to San Francisco. I think at the time, almost none of our customers were people we knew, which is like a very odd thing for like startups because most of the time you start off actually with people you do know, and then you kind of branch off from there. And someone told us, he said, why are you guys making it so hard? Just like get your friends and family to like pay for this if they're like, people who actually fit the demographic or are somewhere near it. And it was such like a funny concept, at least for me, because I was like, do we have people who could use this or whatever it is? And so it was definitely a very funny moment to be like, yeah, we did all these tactics and we tried a lot of stuff. I think growth was definitely both like it was definitely a challenge in a lot of ways for us during that time. We figured some stuff out, some stuff we just didn't figure out, which, you know, definitely gave us a lot of learnings after the fact. But yeah, a lot of the first people were just like Reddit, Facebook, Twitter, people referring their friends. And then over time, when we started to invest more in content, we started to get a few more people coming through content, like blogs and stuff like that. Uh, but yeah, definitely is one thing I definitely should that we I think I could have done a better job off on the growth side, but it's one of those things where you live and learn, and next time we build anything, it's going to be with a or different focus or different way of going about it.
Excellent, excellent. And so your I know it's sold now, but basically it works with live coaches or it's a AI coach right now.
Oh, the app that we made.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we sold Crescent to BetterUp, and BetterUp's the largest coaching company in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, I mean, their last funding round was like $500 million. They work with a lot of awesome companies and people, stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, selling to BetterUp was definitely an interesting process for sure. We sold the company in 23, so March of 23, and it was a very like so basically what happened is we were on our last legs of like runway, like literally we probably had a month of runway left, and this was like March 1st. I remember all this so vividly because it was so crazy. I woke up like 8 a.m. My phone was on my nightstand, right next to me. And basically, I was expecting a text message from a VC we were talking to be like, "Hey, we're going to give you 1.5, $2 million to keep, you know, helping the world sleep better." And basically, I got a message saying, "Hey, we're not giving you any money," which was absolutely bananas because we basically were in like the reference stage, and there's almost like no possible way we would have not gotten the money, but we didn't get it, which was so like heartbreaking for me because I was like, wow, now we have a month of runway or month left to actually try and sell a company, which I've never heard of being done, nor have I done it myself. And now I have X months, like 30 days to do so with like no money to my name. Basically, I had negative dollars to my name. And so, me and Jason basically, it was definitely sad for sure because I thought I was a, failure. I was like, damn, how did we get to this point in time? And I remember that day, like just like calling my mom and being like, wow, I messed up pretty bad. And she was just like, I love you and it's fine. You'll figure it out. I was like, I hope so. I hope so. And then me and Jason just like, we were trying to like whiteboard and figure things out. I still have a picture of the whiteboard, but we ended up just like starting to cry and stuff. We were like, shit, this is crazy. And so we ended up just like walking around the financial district in SF for like an hour, just not even talking about the situation, but just like reminiscing on, all the things that we've been through, all the things that have happened. Yeah, we basically just let it all out and accepted the situation as it was. When we got back to like the office we were in the financial district, wasn't even our office. Shout out to our friends because again we were so low on runway. We just started to build the process, and lucky enough for us, we got our first term sheet in 4 days, 4 or 5 days, which is pretty. And I guess as context maybe for people, it's like if someone is like coming to me because now I've talked to like hundreds of people who have done the selling process or trying to do it. It's usually taking like 3 or 4 months, most likely, to like see something, get something, maybe finish the process. We finished ours in less than a month, and we got our first term sheet in 4 days' time, and then we got basically two more in the next 5 days. So our process was actually very fast and very very efficient. Yeah, and then obviously like the buyer was BetterUp that we ended up going with. There were a few more people, but we went with BetterUp, and yeah, I mean they. So yeah, I'll stop there. But that was like at least like the selling part of it, which was still a pretty crazy experience to be honest to think about.
So the term sheet is like your offer sheet to buy the
Yeah,
company.
so every selling process is a little different, but basically I would break it down in like maybe a few phases. So the first phase of like selling is like, should you actually sell? Do you want to sell? Because obviously it's a very personal decision for everyone, any founder, any company who's doing this. I know some companies who had like millions and were doing great but wanted to sell. There are companies who just had, it was like their lifeline. So everyone's situation is very different, but you ultimately just have to know like where you are as a person, where your company is, and be super, super honest. Because the last thing you want to do is just kind of like lie about what's going on because it doesn't really help you, it doesn't help your team, stuff like that. So yeah, so once you've like kind of gotten past that point of like, I know this is like the right path to go down, then the next part is like kind of still in that phase is like just setting things up because as you're selling your company, you're going through that process, you still have to run the company because there's no guarantee it's going to happen. I mean, most selling processes fall through. Uh, Mostly all of them, very small amount actually go through. So you have to kind of prepare mentally and prepare for like just the grueling nature of it. Um, and then, it kind of when getting to like the nitty gritty stuff, it's very much similar to like a fundraising or sales process in that you have the companies you want to, focus on and target as like potential buyers for what you're doing. And that could be because, they would want your team as the talent effectively to come to their team, or they want the technology that you have built and a mix of the revenue that you've made, maybe a mix of both. And I think one thing people really screw up on that we did actually a phenomenal job at, but it wasn't like super intentional. It just happened to be something that I was particularly good at, which was building and maintaining relationships
Mm.
with people generally and with these companies that would end up being potential buyers. Because I first met the BetterUp CEO back in 2020. It was like literally almost like right after I had left my job. I
Mm.
sent an email just being like, hey, you seem to have been built a company that's doing pretty well. You have a Series B or Series C at the time. Like, just teach us something. I don't know what the hell is going on right now. And it just came from a place of genuine curiosity. For a lot of people that were in our like sell process, it was very similar relationships. Like we just learning from them, keeping them in touch, lunches, coffees, all these different things that were happening. And so for any like founders who are like thinking about this, it's like, yes, there are like the steps I've mentioned and will continue to mention, but really it all starts at like, even like maybe pre-formation of your company or maybe when you form it is like, who are like potential buyers? Because I think one thing that I've noticed people forget is if you take like investor money, they're expecting like to get money back, right?
Mm.
And a lot of it. And there's really like two main ways that happens. You sell your company or you go public. Or maybe like there's other paths of like you pay dividends out or some other thing. But let's just go with these two. And like obviously, not everyone, which I've realized, but a lot of people start companies really do want to like IPO and go down that path. Great. This is a very unlikely thing to happen in like the grand scheme of like everything. This selling process is actually comparatively is way more likely. And so you always have to be thinking about like, again, it is a hard thing with thinking about how do I maintain these relationships with potential buyers while still showing people I like care and maintain the ambition of building this like generational company, which you want to build a generational company. So this generation, the next and the next. I think like that's like really something important to like hammer down is people should really be thinking about this at the start, not like when things are hitting the fan. Because when things hit the fan, you really can get very bad terms or a bad situation, or most likely you will shut your company down and nothing will come of it, so to speak. And so yeah, so I just want to emphasize that. And then there's like other parts, like we mentioned, the term sheet is basically just like, let's say you found the company that's like great for you, whatever. Then they will like basically, this is our offer letter to buy your company. At that point, when you get the term sheet, you're probably like 25% of the way to being done, maybe 50%. It is not like fundraising where you get a term sheet, you sign it, then the money hits your bank account, like hopefully in a timely manner. No, that is not what this is. You get the term sheet and it's like, okay, now we have due diligence. Now we have to go through your legal documents and your finances. And then we have to sign this long ass document called maybe a release and waiver, probably called definitive agreement. And that is a 31-page document of, man, that's a lot of freaking words.
Wow.
And even if you sign a definitive agreement, okay, like, you still need to potentially get signatures from investors or something to finish it. And so really like at any point in this process, things could break down quite a freaking bit. And so you really have to be like on top of your game. And just to give people a reference point, basically like those last 3 months of doing the company and selling, I like did not go out. I really didn't do anything but like work. Like the only person I consistently talked to was my mom, Jason, and our like acquisition council, which was like 5 founders I had put together who had sold their company, who can give me and Jason advice on how to do this process well. Didn't really talk to another soul. Obviously, I lived in my house, so I saw people and stuff, but it was definitely like 11, 12-hour days, very consistently, probably for most of the month. Didn't do much else with my life at that point.
I mean, what was
Which
the
was
work
like,
like?
huh?
What was the work like? Due diligence or?
Yeah, like the process of like, we had calls like every day. We had to like, I had to put together the finances, the legal documents, find the things. There was some stuff that actually had to be like printed out and signed. So I had to like run like to like UPS and then come back and then sign it and be like, shit, this pen is out of ink or something happened. And so there was a lot of crazy things that were happening at the time. And so it basically was like my entire life was just like, obviously the company's thing was my entire life, but especially the selling process was like, for me, it was just like, there was nothing else that really mattered. I didn't think about anything else, to be honest. Nothing else really mattered like that much, or really anything else instead of getting it done. And I think potentially that was part of the reason why I went so fast, is because we were so locked in and we had such a short amount of time. It was like, it felt very do or die. In a way, it wasn't actually do or die, and we knew that, but just like it was just a very like highly charged emotional situation in a lot of ways. Yeah, we were closing deals. I mean, I want to say we signed our term sheet at like, it was like a Thursday or Friday at like 3 a.m. in the morning, 2 a.m. in the morning. It was like, so.
Well, congratulations on your acquisition. What's next for you?
Yeah. I think what's next is just, yeah, I still very much so want to continue building companies, and mainly just as I mainly think about is like, I want to have a big impact on the world and do something that can positively move the human race forward. And not just in my lifetime, but my kids' lifetime, and their kids' lifetime. And there really aren't that many paths that lead to that type of impact. there's like you can build a company, maybe you get into politics and make some laws or something, or you like start a religion. And I thought about the latter two quite a bit. I still think startups and company building are where I'm best positioned to help out and help out the human race. And so yeah, still company building. Going to be traveling for a little bit too. So after
Exciting.
Mexico City, we'll spend some time in the U.S. again for about a month, and then basically spend some more time in Asia, so like Japan, Thailand, these different places. Yeah, so like
Asia as a
marinated.
whole.
So um, so yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, so like meeting new people. Uh, so yeah, that's pretty much what's on the docket. And if anything changes, follow me on LinkedIn. Joshua
Yeah.
Collin there, or like Twitter, Joshua T Collin. Can kind of I post a lot more on LinkedIn just about stuff I'm doing, reading, seeing what's going on, and feel free to reach out to me. Maybe we can leave my email somewhere, but jcollin14@gmail.com if you ever want to reach out and talk. I talk to founders and people about like life decisions and all that stuff like all the time. So yeah,
All right. Thank you so much for coming on the pod. We really
thank
appreciate
you.
you. Okay. All right. See you.
Okay.